Left of the box.
Left of the box. Sandy does a great job on the Canadian stuff.
I mean, we've talked about this before, but many of these apartments now are requiring brokers' fees. Brokers' fees are basically fees that you have to take on, and they should be illegal.
It's criminals. It's all
which
crime.
is like a broker, paying the broker who is really basically working for the landlord to bring in tenants. And then you pay this ransom fee to the broker who does nothing except sometimes buzz you into the apartment for
Hope
you
they
to look
don't
at
bait
it
and
by
switch you.
yourself.
It's all
Yeah.
criminals.
And the broker's fee, it's usually like around 10 to 15% of your annual rent.
Yep.
So thousands of dollars.
It's crazy.
Thousands of dollars. And I avoided that with my latest apartment. I didn't use a broker's fee, but it's also a piece of crap, and they didn't fix my air conditioning for 2 months over the summer. So
Yeah, but great that wages have slightly ticked up so that landlords can command that from them too.
yep, it should be illegal. And there, Eric Adams isn't doing anything about it, obviously.
Train Boy says, I don't think you know what monthly nut means, Sam. Karate. Ed Mail says, Sam, please don't refer to your monthly budget as your nut. There you go. Calling from a 519 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Sandy from Ontario.
Hi, Sandy. How are you? What's happening?
I'm good. Yeah. So last week you got a couple callers in from Canada wanting you to save us.
Well, yeah, we have our own problems here in the States.
Yeah, we have our problems up here too, housing included, because we have all the same housing crisis up here. And it's especially hard for people living with disabilities because our disability payments don't cover market rent anymore. So you're stuck where you're living, wherever you are. So if you're in an abusive situation with the landlord, with a partner, all that sort of stuff, you can't actually move. And you're forced to stay in those situations. And then if you are forced to move because you get rent evicted or the landlord kicks you out for whatever reason, there's nowhere for you to go anywhere in the country where a disability check can cover the rent.
Oy.
So I actually just wanted to touch on what the callers were calling about last week, because they were kind of connected with the college crisis and rise of racism here in Canada. And the college issue is part public, part private, and issues for two different reasons. So the public colleges, especially here in Ontario, have really, really increased the amount of students that can come in, international students, partly because it's a money grab. They need as much money as they can because they're being underfunded by the Ford government, and that's on purpose, of course. And so you get this influx of students coming in without the proper infrastructure in place for these colleges to be able to cover them properly and support them the way that they need to be. Then you have the private colleges that some of them are just right out scams, offering fake enrollment letters and things of that sort. And they're literally sometimes just a storefront in a strip mall. And they'll have people come over, and then those students don't have the same supports that you would even get in a public college. So things like health insurance, which us Canadians don't tend to worry about too much, but they don't have that. So they have to actually get health insurance when they come over here. Then the cost of living explodes, so they might have to have a certain amount of money in order to come over here in the first place. But with the way the food prices have increased so drastically, the way the cost of living has increased so drastically, their budgets a few years ago don't match what's happening right now. So then there's a higher demand in food banks and things of that sort, which led to one food bank here in Ontario over the holidays rejecting any international student from getting food.
Oy.
And so what's happening now is you have the conservative leaders that like to point at all these immigrants and international students and say they're the reason for the housing crisis. They're the reason for, high costs elsewhere, and we need to limit the amount of people that come in. And meanwhile, the Liberals are more than happy to have a whole bunch of newcomers come into the country because it's good in the headlines. Like we've had over 75,000 Syrians come in. There was over just about 1 million temporary emergency visas for Ukrainian refugees. And over 200,000 people have actually taken the government up on that, even we have a program for refugees from Gaza. A whole 1,000 people can come over if they have family here that can, afford to keep them for a year. If they can get to the office, if they can, fill out all the biometrics, have a resume with all the jobs that they've had since they were 16 with their supervisors, be able to explain all injuries and scars on their body and hand over their social media accounts. Then they can come over.
Crazy.
And they're flexible on that cap of 1,000 people. So what you have is you have the liberals using them like tokens and the conservatives using them as scapegoats. And in the end, they suffer with both governments for different reasons. And because the conservatives like to blame newcomers and stuff, racism is on the rise. Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party, he isn't outright openly racist yet, but he is falling into the right-wing tropes of anti-trans talk. So he's been very public about, wanting to restrict trans women from where they can go and things of that sort. But then you also have other conservative leaders like Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, who she didn't invite Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson came on a speaking tour and she invited herself up on stage with him to talk conspiracy theory and his fear of his wife seeing him out of the shower and laughing at him, which was actually in the speech, kind of disturbing.
I think I'll take a pass on that one.
Appreciate the honesty of
But
that.
yes, exactly. All right, well, Sandy,
Yeah.
appreciate the update. People can check out Left of Box for more on this. When is your show regularly scheduled?
My next live stream will be tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube at Left of the Box.
Thanks so much for calling, Sandy.
Thanks, Andy.
Well, thank you so much for the shout out last week. I super appreciate it.
Anytime.